Hello, Professor. This is my presentation on the history of Puerto Rico and its lack of voting rights with the United States. So, to start with a little introduction, I chose this topic because we have seen in recent years, specifically under the new presidential administration, the U.S. and Puerto Rico in the news with a little bit of political turmoil between the two. And I myself am not Puerto Rican and do not know much about Puerto Rican history, so this project was a little bit of a challenge, but a good challenge. However, what I was aware before starting this project is that Puerto Ricans do not have voting rights when it comes to U.S. elections. Therefore, the purpose of this project was to dig deeper into the history of Puerto Rico and the United States in hopes of solving the question as to why these citizens do not have voting rights. So, a little introduction. The U.S. acquired the territory of Puerto Rico as a result of the Spanish-American War ending in 1898. However, Puerto Rico and its people would not become citizens, and I put citizens in quotation marks, as you'll see why, until 1917. So, upon further research, to better understand the decision making of the United States in not giving Puerto Ricans voting rights and full citizenship, essentially, is the insular cases. What are the insular cases? The insular cases were a series of opinions by the U.S. Supreme Court justices that decided, although Puerto Ricans are technically citizens, that does not mean they receive full constitutional rights, specifically the right to vote. And these cases took place in 1901. When we further examine the insular cases opinions, we can further see that this decision to withhold certain constitutional rights from Puerto Ricans was one based off ignorance and racism, and you will see why. So, going back to the insular cases, specifically the opinion expressed by the Supreme Justice Henry Billings Brown, who stated Puerto Rico is inhabited by alien races. Therefore, governing them according to Anglo-Saxon principles does not make sense, or furthermore, in his mind, would be impossible. Furthermore, the United States cited that because for over 400 years Puerto Rico was a colony of Spain and never had recognized self-rule, therefore the United States argued that before the people of Puerto Rico can be fully entrusted with self-government, they must learn the principles of constitutional government. Today, this despicable and racist act by the Supreme Court still stands. Puerto Rico today still has no voting rights. In Congress today, Puerto Rico is allowed only a single representative, and you guessed it, he or she has no voting power in Congress. Essentially, they are they're like a lobbyist. They're hoping to persuade other representatives in the United States Congress who do have voting rights to vote in their favor on certain cases. Therefore, to conclude, I think the reason I chose this topic was I feel it's important that people understand the history of the United States and Puerto Rico with this debate going on as to whether or not Puerto Rico should be a state. And I think it's important for people for U.S. citizens to understand that there are U.S. citizens in the world, because Puerto Ricans are fully U.S. citizens, who do not have the same protected constitutional rights as their fellow citizens, like I myself have, being born and raised in New York my whole life. Furthermore, it was important for me to express where this century-old decision comes from, to see that it comes from a place of ignorance and racism. And this is important to me because as a history major, I am always hopeful that the more people truly understand some of the wrongs in our history as a society, the sooner we can resolve them. And the issue of Puerto Rico and its voting rights or lack thereof of voting rights for, I don't like to say its citizens because its citizens are our citizens. So the lack of voting rights for US citizens. And I think this is really something that people need to understand going forward, given where we are in our political climate. So to conclude, I hope that by presenting this issue out there, more people understand it. Thank you.